use headphones for best experience. Thanks for your fantastic support. Hi, welcome to another video. Today I would like to talk a bit about a map showing the entire world. And I got the inspiration when I saw this map in the newspaper. You can see here it's from the February still can't say it, February 5th, 2021. So it's the weather forecast in Sweden. But it's always this small map here in the corner. You can see temperatures from the whole world. And lately I've been fascinated about like zones and regions of the world that are not political borders or divided by political borders, but that are more like natural borders. So I've been studying the climate zones of the Earth. And it's a quite famous system called the Köppen Climate system. I think it was presented in the early 20th century, sometime around 1920 or so, by Köppen. I think he was Russian and German, something like that. Russian living in Germany, I'm not sure. But yeah, when you Google climate map of different parts of the world, you can pick any country. You often find a lot of Köppen climate maps with a lot of colors. So I want to show you these, starting from this map. This is not a climate map, this is a temperature map. Temperatures at 1 p.m. Swedish time, February 5th, 2021. So, but I want to show you what I have read about these climate zones with using this map, this small map here on the newspaper, as some kind of reference. So I'll be tracing a lot, showing you some climate zones. I think I should start by zooming in a bit. So, we start to talk about the 5 general groups in this Köppen system. We have A, B, C, D, and E. And the group A is the tropical zone, basically around the equator of the Earth, the hottest, the wettest, most humid zone. Then we have the dry zone. If we go polewards, north or south from the equator, we will reach the two tropics, tropical Cancer, tropical Capricorn, north and south. Here we find many dry areas in the world. So it's a dry zone. And here the evapotranspiration, that's a long word. It's both the evaporation from soils on Earth, and also you have to keep in mind the transpiration from plants. So all the liquid rising and going up from Earth to the air in this way is called the evapotranspiration. And when the evapotranspiration exceeds the precipitation, the rain and things like that, then it's a dry zone. Here you find the deserts of the Earth, many of the deserts. That was B, dry. Then we have C, that's the mild mid-latitude zone, the Mediterranean climate, and also the humid subtropical and the marine west coast or oceanic climate. So the Mediterranean still has a lot of dry seasons, or at least one very dry season that reminds of the climate in the dry zone. So during the summer we have this dry climate in the Mediterranean zone, but in the winter, and of course this is because the tilting of the Earth creating seasons. So in the summer we have, the sun is nearest the Earth. During North Hemisphere summer it's here, so then it's not far away from Mediterranean. And then of course it gets very dry here, but in the winter we have the equator, or where the sun is closest to the Earth, we have it here, and the northern hemisphere winter. Of course it's the southern hemisphere summer, and then this climate will resemble more the humid subtropical or the oceanic climate. So it's like a mixture of the dry and the humid. And so C, the mild mid-latitude zone, that is big area where you can see the yellow and green colors here, I guess. Then we have D, the fourth zone here in this system, and that's a severe mid-latitude. And now it's northern hemisphere winter. So here you can see it's blue here to the north. In the south we only have the blue color here in Antarctica, the very, very south of Earth. But the severe mid-latitude, it's we have some subgroups here. We have the Humid Continental and the Subarctic. Actually, Sweden is in the severe mid-latitude zone. I'm sitting now in Sweden, recording this video. And then we have the fifth zone, E. That's the polar zone. The tundra and ice caps of the world, where it's very difficult for plants to grow. So we have the Treeline, for example, approximately where we also have the border or transition between the severe mid-latitude and the polar climate. But let's start. That was like an overview, but now we can start to talk a bit about the A group, the tropical humid zone. So here we have the equator, and in the tropical humid zone we have a rainforest and a lot of precipitation all year, and no actual seasons, because it's almost like every day is the same climate. It's like raining a lot almost every day, I guess, and it doesn't differ the summer or winter season. And yeah, we have the rainforest here in Amazon, in South America, in this zone. Also have the Congolian rainforest, mainly in Congo, Kinshasa, or the Democratic Republic of Congo. But also the Republic of Congo and Gabon, Cameroon, these countries in Central Africa. And also in Southeast Asia, the islands here, the Indonesian islands, Malaysia, New Guinea, have actually Singapore at the very tip of Malay Peninsula. It's the tropical humid zone. Now I have been generalizing a lot, and I only talk about the tropical humid zone, but actually what I'm talking about now is the tropical wet zone. And the letters for the code for this typical zone is AF. A for the first zone, and F comes from the German word for moist, feucht, something like that. So yeah, it's a wet zone when it comes to describing climate. And that's where you find the rainforests. Yeah, so we have the Sumatra Island, we have Borneo Island, and Maluku Islands, New Guinea Island, Philippines, Sulawesi Island here, But you can also find this climate on some other places. For example, in Central America, you can find them. Even though I'm not sure it's rainforest, but I guess it is rainforests, parts here, parts of Central America as well. But anyway, even in Florida you can find AF climate, tropical wet climate. And I was quite surprised and thought it was very fascinating when I read that. It's on the southern tip of Florida, to the east, and it's very close to Miami, but not actually in Miami, it's north of Miami. Two places called Boca Raton and Fort Lauderdale. Actually, I've been traveling north of Miami once, and then I passed Fort Lauderdale. So, but I had no idea by then that it was that I was passing a tropical wet climate zone. So that was fascinating. Then we have the Caribbean islands, where we also can find the tropical wet climate. Some parts of Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. In Mexico, you can find some tropical wet climate in the southern parts here, Tabasco, Chiapas. And in Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. There are some areas as well. I guess many of these areas are national parks, big forested areas. For example, in Honduras, there's a natural reserve or natural biological reserve called Rio Plátano in the province of Gracias a Dios. And in Panama there's a forest reserve called Palo Seco, also in this climate region. Here we have the Guyana Shield in South America, North and South America. Here also, it's adjacent to Amazon rainforest, I guess, but by the coast, I guess we have the Guyana Shield and some mountains here, like a barrier between the big Amazon area, and then it's also an area along the coast here with the tropical wet climate. Then we have a small spot here, at least when you look at the small map showing the entire world, in East Liberia in Africa, Western Africa. It's where the Plateau Mountains are located. Also considered a tropical wet area. So we have in Madagascar a narrow strip along the eastern coast. Falls into this category of zones, climate zones. And on Sri Lanka, the island here, the Indian Ocean, we have the southwestern coast, where there are a lot of popular tourist destinations, I guess, and beaches. for example Bentota and Mirisa here along this coast, and also inland a bit up the hills. There are, it's this tropical wet climate there as well. And I also found one location in Australia, just like in Florida. It's just a small point by the coast, eastern coast. It's on the southern part of the Cape York Peninsula. And this place is called Innisfail. Innisfail. It's south of Cairns in Queensland. Here we have the Cape York Peninsula. Now let's talk about another category of, or another subgroup in the A, tropical humid climate zone. It's a tropical monsoon zone. Using the letters A, M. A is just the letter A for the tropical humid and group, and M stands for the monsoon. So it's a monsoonal climate with the heavy rains after a short dry season. That differs it from the tropical wet climate. Actually, I read that the heavy rains are so heavy that if you look at the precipitation of the whole year, these areas quite often get more rain than the tropical wet zone does. So even though there are a couple of months, 2-3 months, where it's not raining, the total amount of rain through the year is actually more. But this is not, the tropical monsoon climate is not found so many places on Earth. I guess the most famous ones are here in Southeast Asia. And then they are located at the western coast quite often. Western coast of India, the Konkan coast, and the Malabar coast. We have Konkan coast and Malabar coast here. Kerala is here somewhere. And also along the coast here, on Malay Peninsula and Thailand and Myanmar. Here where it's the most narrow point of this piece of land, the Kra Isthmus is in this zone, and the Arakan Mountains in Myanmar, and the coast here, Bengal, Assam, Northeast India. Also the coast of Vietnam, even though it's an eastern coast here, find the tropical monsoon climate. And in some southern parts of New Guinea or Papua, Peninsula, Australia, Queensland. And the Maldives are also in this zone. And in Africa we have some places as well. It's like the extension of the Congolian rainforest. So it's in Congo, Kinshasa, and Republic of Congo, Cameroon, Nigeria coast, some coast areas here in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana, northern Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea coast. Also some parts that are not coastal here in Uganda and Ethiopia, Ethiopian highlands. You find the same type or classification of climate. And we also have some areas in South America. We have the extension and the outskirts of the Amazon rainforest. We have an area in Paraguay called the Humid Chaco. The Chaco is drier, it's here, but this is the Humid Chaco. And we have some smaller parts of Mato Grosso do Sul in Brazil, and some areas along the coast in Brazil. I think I forgot to mention that actually the area around Salvador is considered to be in the tropical wet. The rainforest zone actually. But there are some coastal points here where we have the tropical monsoon climate. In Colombia and Venezuela we have also an area called the Orinoquia along the Ornico River. It's a park here in Venezuela called the Caura or Thaura National Park. And this is also, I guess, part of the Llanos area in Colombia, Venezuela. Grassland plains here. And in Panama, Costa Rica, and all the countries here in Central America also have some areas considered to be in the tropical monsoon zone. Many reserves, national reserves here. In Mexico we have parts of southern Veracruz, parts of Tabasco, and parts here, these are actually parts along the Gulf of Mexico coastline. And between Mexico and Guatemala we have the Maya Biosphere Reserve, and in the very eastern part of Mexico, in Chiapas state, we have the Lacandan jungle, the Montes Azules Biosphere Reserve. So that are some of the locations where we have the tropical monsoon climate, also in the Caribbean, small parts of Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti. Yeah, just like the tropical wet climate. And around Miami we have this climate as well, the Everglades National Park, southern Florida. So we're still talking about the A group, tropical humid group. We have one more to discuss, and that's the AW or AS. W stands for, in this case, for winter, and it means that it has a dry season in winter. So it's tropical, humid, but it has a dry season in the winter. Also because of the Earth oscillation, I think it's called, and it changes and making the seasons of the year. So it has a winter season, and then it's also called the tropical savanna. So we find the savannas here. And I guess that's why it's also called sometimes AS. Then I guess S stands for savanna, but I'm not completely sure. And the tropical savanna regions of Earth, we find on quite many locations, actually, more than the monsoon areas. If we start again here at Australia, we have almost the entire Cape York Peninsula belonging to the savanna region, and the northern coast here in Queensland and Northern Territory, and the Kimberley Plateau here. And here I read about a national park, Kakadu National Park, close to Darwin. Also this area here is considered to be the tropical savanna. And some of the southernmost islands of Southeast Asia, Java and Timor, eastern parts of Java. China, we have the southernmost province, Hainan, this island here, Hainan Dao. That's a savanna, according to Köppen. And almost the entire interior of the Southeast Asia here, the main continent. So not the coast, but the northeast of Thailand, center of Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia. And in India we find this climate along the Western Ghats, So not along the western, not the coast. There we found another climate, the monsoon climate. But then we have, after the narrow strip of coast, we have the Western Ghats mountainous region. Here you find it, and also in the Eastern Ghats here. And on the Coromandel coast, here to the southeast. And also parts of the Deccan Plateau here in the center, and the eastern part of India, Bangladesh, India and Bangladesh. The northern part of Sri Lanka. If we move to Africa, we find a really vast savanna region here, the east and west Sudanian savanna. Like a belt crossing the entire continent. And here we have South Sudan, Central African Republic, and Cameroon, Nigeria, and all these countries in Western Africa. And we find the same climate to the south as well. Here we have the Miombo Woodlands with the Miombo trees. Or maybe there are Miombo trees here as well, I'm not sure, but these are often referred to as the Miombo Woodlands. And it's the northern parts of Angola, it's the southern parts of Congo-Kinshasa. And it's part of Tanzania, Mozambique, and Uganda. And yeah, so we have the Angolan Miombo Woodlands, we have the southern Miombo Woodlands, all the way to Malawi, Mozambique. We have the eastern Miombo Woodlands and the central Zambesian Miombo Woodlands to Zambia as well. Northern parts of Zambia are in this climate region. And the western part of Madagascar. In South America, we have a very vast area in Brazil, basically, most in Brazil, often referred to as the Cerrado. That's a tropical savanna. Stretches into Bolivia and Paraguay. And also some parts along the coast that are not considered to be tropical wet or tropical monsoon. Could be the tropical savanna. And a big chunk here of the Llanos area, the tropical grassland plain I talked about, in Venezuela and Colombia. And in Colombia we also have the Caribbean coast region falling into this subgroup. By the way, the Atlantic coast region, I'm not sure I mentioned that before, but I guess that's actually falls into the tropical wet area, but I don't think I mentioned that one. So it's quite different, the climate in Colombia, the Caribbean coast compared to the Pacific coast. Of course, that has to do with currents, warm currents, cold currents, winds, things like that. Big parts of Cuba and the other islands here in the Caribbean are tropical savanna. Also southern part of Florida. Everglades National Park again, and Florida Keys, for example. And areas here, it's mostly the western parts of the Central American countries like Nicaragua and Honduras, El Salvador. Then we have in Mexico almost the entire Yucatan Peninsula. That's tropical savanna. And parts of the Gulf coastal plain and the Pacific coastal plains as well. And here the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, Chiapas. Also, actually, in Ecuador we have some parts considered to be tropical savanna. It's in the Andes region, Guayas province. The biggest city of Ecuador is Guayaquil, and that is a city located in this area, the Guayas province, in the tropical savanna ecoregion. Now we will change to talk a bit about the B group, general group B, dry group. And here we find desert and steppe. So I think we will start with the steppes. Then we have the B, W, H and B, S, H groups. B is just the first letter, I mean the second general group, and then we have W for sorry, I mixed this up actually. We will talk about the BSH and BSK subgroups. The B and then S, and the S stands for steppe or semi-arid. And H stands for hot, and K stands for cold, and it's German, so H, yeah, it's the same in English, but K is the German word for cold, kalt. So we have both the hot steppes and cold steppes that are semi-arid. So this is the transition area between savanna and desert, and also between desert and Mediterranean, or humid subtropical climate. And there are many steppes in the world. We find them in western North America, in states like Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico. We have the Rocky Mountain steppe and the short grass prairies in the Great Plains. Then we have, and these are cold steppes. Then we have the hot steppes here at the US-Mexican border, Llanos Estacado. And along the Pacific coastal plain in Mexico, and along Sierra Madre Occidental, or in between the mountainous area and the coastal plain, I guess. And in the Mexican plateau we have this climate, the central Mexico. Also we have the Edwards Plateau in Texas, and the area around the Rio Grande River here. Not much of this climate in Central America, but in South America we find it here, especially here in the northeastern Brazilian highlands. Here we have the Caatinga xeric shrubland area. And also we have the Gran Chaco in Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia. So the Caatinga and Gran Chaco are hot steppes. Then we have some cold steppes as well. The Monte Desert in Argentina. Here, Altiplano in Bolivia, where the Andes are the most wide. We have the eastern part here called the Altiplano. In Africa we have some steppe areas. So there are some woodlands here called the Kalahari Akakia Baikiaea. Kalahari, or maybe it's pronounced like this, Kalahari Asasia Baikiaea. It's in the northern part of Namibia. It covers most of Botswana, parts of Zimbabwe, and southern parts of Mozambique. Also stretches into Angola. And basically here in Botswana it's called the Kalahari Asasia Baikiaea, and in Angola, Namibia, it's referred to as the Angolan Mopane Woodlands. And we have the southwestern tip of Madagascar as well here. And we have some areas in South Africa. Drakensberg, the Great Escarpment, the steep slopes here of the South African Plateau, parts of that this mountainous area or plateau, high elevated area, are in the steppe, cold steppe area. And here in Angola and Kalahari we have the hot steppe, and also we have some hot steppe here in Somalia, Tanzania, Kenya, along the Great Rift in Ethiopia here, and also again a long wide belt here north of the Savanna we talked about earlier. We have the Sahel steppe from Senegal through Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Nigeria, Chad, Sudan. Yeah. And then we have also again at the other side of the Sahara Desert, we have the parts of the Atlas Mountains, considered to be the same climate, steppe, some hot steppe and some cold steppe. Then we have some steppe in Europe as well. We have in Spain a lot of areas in central Spain, in the Meseta Central, or the Central Plateau. Big parts of Spain is in the steppe, cold steppe category. La Mancha. And also Monegros Desert or steppe in Aragon, in the northeastern Spain. And we have some areas here in northern Greece. And we have the Pontic-Caspian steppe in Romania, Ukraine, the Black Sea coast. We have the Eastern Anatolian steppe, or the Eastern Anatolian montane steppe, east of Turkey, in northern Iran. Oh, we can't see Caspian Sea here, this map. Not very accurate. And the Pontic-Caspian steppe. And also we have the Central Anatolian steppe, the center of Anatolia, Turkey. We have Upper Mesopotamia, the Levant here, the Zagros Mountains in western Iran, and the Eurasian steppe, that you can divide into, the Pontic-Caspian steppe I mentioned before, to the west, the Kazakh steppe, the center, and the Mongolian Manchurian grassland in the east. So it's a huge area with steppe climate here. Tibetan plateau, some steppe areas, and these are cold steppes, or these European and Central Asian, Eastern Asian steppes. The Zagros Mountains is considered to be a hot steppe. Also we have around the extension of the Sahara Desert, between Pakistan and India, or the western parts of India, we have semi-arid area. Falls into the steppe category, and we have the Deccan Plateau, the center of the Indian subcontinent. Hot steppe. And this is a region here in Myanmar called the Mandalay region. It's also steppe climate. And in Central Asia we also have some smaller areas in the transition between mountainous areas and deserts, I guess. The Mirazakol steppe, for example. It's the extension of the Kyzyl-Kum desert. We also have steppe in Azerbaijan, here in the Caucasus, shrub desert and steppe. And let's move to Australia. It's a lot of deserts in the center of Australia, but like east of it or north of it, and also south of it, we have some steppe areas. Central lowlands, the Great Artesian Basin, where there are actually a lot of water in the ground. And the southeast Australia temperate savanna, and the Riverina agriculture region here to the south. The area around Adelaide has some steppe climate, and also to the west around Perth, and to the southern coast here at the Nullarbor Plain, and in the Darling Scarp. We can find some steppe. And there's also a steppe area here between Iran and what country is this? Is it Turkmenistan, I guess? And it's called Köppen Woodlands and Forest Steppe. It's east of the Caspian Sea, and the Caspian Sea is here. So here somewhere. Now we have the deserts, and the letter code for the deserts are BW. B for the second group, and W for Wüste, German word for desert. You can think of wasteland, Wüste. And we have BWH for hot desert, and BWH for the cold deserts. And this is actually really interesting, I think. I started by looking up deserts. That's kind of how I got into this topic. I wanted to know more about the deserts of the world, their locations and their names. we have actually some deserts in North America, both cold and hot. We have the Great Basin, it's a cold desert in mostly Nevada and Utah. The Rocky Mountains. And then we have the Mojave Desert in California. And Southern California. It's a hot desert west of the Colorado Plateau. And we have the Chihuahuan Desert in Chihuahua in northern Mexico, and also in, I guess, could it be Arizona or New Mexico in the US? And we have the Sonoran Desert. It's Baja California and Baja California Sur, and the Sonora state in Mexico. I think it goes a bit into the US as well. Maybe here's Arizona. So that were the North American deserts, and we have the South American deserts as well. The Sechura Desert along the coast of Peru. So it's a coastal desert. The Atacama Desert, the driest desert, non-polar desert in the world. You can see the region here actually on this map. This yellow color, or if it's green. So the Atacama Desert in North Chile, Bolivia, Peru. A cold desert. Some parts of Monte Desert are in the desert climate area, but most of it was steppe. And then we have the Patagonian Desert. Southern parts of Argentina, it's a cold desert. Along the eastern coast here. Now we can move to Africa. And we have this super vast Sahara Desert, covering the entire northern part of the continent. And actually, deserts are only appear on the western coast of continents. So you could see here and here. Okay, not in Patagonia. But mostly they can be found in western parts of continents. And I find it really fascinating because I have found out now that a lot of these climate areas can be found only on one side of continents. Like the Monsoon climate, also on the western coast. The Savanna regions, mostly on the eastern coast. Or the eastern coasts are more dominant with savannas, and the western coast more with monsoons and desert. And it has to do with a lot of things, I guess, but basically I think it has to do with the rotation of Earth. Yeah, also Australia has some deserts on the western part of the continent. Yeah, the rotation of the Earth actually, because it has to do with winds, and the winds have an effect on streams, or like currents in the oceans, and also it has to do with the shapes of the continents. So the continents are barriers, especially mountainous regions, barriers for wind. And oceans, wind can blow as it wants to, like it wants to, and no barriers there. So I guess wind from west to east has an effect on deserts. Or creating those somehow. I'm not sure exactly how it works. But the African continent is special because here we have Asia adjacent to it. So it's almost it's a very narrow sea here, Red Sea. But you can see that it's almost the same landmass here. And that means that the desert could extend all the way. Yeah, it continues here actually, on the Arabian Peninsula. So it's no coast that prevents it from, or it's no coast that comes with another climate from the other ocean on the other side. So that's why Sahara Desert can go across the entire continent like this. And yeah, I've mentioned the Arabian Desert here on the Arabian Peninsula. Also super vast desert. The Syrian Desert. Can be considered the northern parts, I guess, of the Arabian Desert. It's no clear border between those. And the Horn of Africa is also in the desert climate zone. The eastern part of Sahara is called the Nubian Desert. It's also a smaller desert here in Eritrea, Djibouti, and Ethiopia, called the Danakil Desert, along the coast to the Red Sea. Then we have the Thar Desert, western India, and in Pakistan. And we have a desert between Pakistan and Afghanistan, called the Registan North Pakistan Sandy Desert in the Sistan Basin. Also hot desert. All these are hot. Then we have two deserts in Iran, and that's Kavir Desert in the center of the country, and or Dasht-e-Kavir. And a bit south of that one we have Dasht-e-Lut, or the Lut Desert. I know the Kavir Desert is cold actually. It's also called the Great Salt Desert. In Central Asia we have the Kyzylkum Desert in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. Kyzylkum means red sand. And in Africa actually we have a small desert called Shalbi Desert between Kenya and Ethiopia. The Kyselkum and Karakum Desert. Yeah, Karakum is a desert in Turkmenistan. And Kavir Desert, those are called cold deserts. Also have an interesting area east of Caspian Sea that used to be a big lake. The Aral Lake, former the fourth biggest lake on the earth, or the fourth biggest endorheic lake, I guess. Because just like Caspian Sea, it was an endorheic lake. But during the late 20th century, there had been so many irrigation projects built here. So it disappeared, shrinked. So it's now a desert instead of a lake, sometimes called the Aralkum Desert. And then we have the Gobi Desert, also a very cold desert in northern China and southern Mongolia. Gobi. And in the western parts of China, surrounded by very big mountains here, we have the Taklamakan Desert. You can really see it on maps because it's so totally flat, looks totally flat, and it's surrounded by really high mountains. It's like a basin. The Xinjiang province of China. In the southern parts of Africa, we also have deserts. Yeah, because we have the Tropic of Cancer here, where you can find the northern hemisphere deserts mostly, because of winds and everything like that, and also pressure, air pressure. When hot air rise here from the equator area, it travels to the north, and then it's a belt of high pressure here called the subtropical high, or just the subtropical high pressure, and that makes it difficult for precipitation to appear, because precipitation is it has to be low pressure to get a lot of precipitation, just like here in the equator, along the equator. Here actually we have something called the intertropical convergence zone. So it's a low pressure most of the time, so it's a lot of precipitation. And the opposite here. And when I point out the Tropic of Cancer, I mean I could also point out the Tropic of Capricorn here to the south. It's the same effect, so that's why we have deserts here as well. And that's the Kalahari Desert and the coastal desert in Namibia. Kalahari in mostly Botswana, South Africa. Yeah, but I talked a bit about the winds and the pressure and things like that, and I'm not an expert on this at all. I find it very complicated, but the thing is that winds want to go from the equatorial area to the north, or it's like the air gets warmer and then it goes up in the air, and then it starts to move polewards, so to the north or to the south. But because the Earth is rotating, it doesn't go straight to the north or straight to the south. It becomes like, because it's not attached to the Earth, it's above the Earth, so as the Earth is rotating, it looks like, or it appears like for us on the Earth, as the winds are going, how could I describe it? I'm not sure. It appears as if they were going in a northwestern direction, probably, or southwestern. Okay. I'm really not sure. Maybe I'm mixing things up now, but so they don't go straight to the north or south. They go in some other directions. And I know there are like trade winds going in these directions from the south and in this direction from the north. And then we have the westerlies going in this direction from west to east, southwest to northeast, and the opposite here, I guess. But this has an impact, a lot of impact on the climate on Earth, and why we can see some climate zones on just one part of the continent, the western part and not the eastern part, or the eastern part and not the western part. It's because some of these winds are hot and some are cold, and they create currents in the sea, and some of them are hot because the water comes from the equator and goes to the polar regions, or some go from the polar regions towards the equator, and then they're cold. Here we have a cold current, and here we have a hot current. Here we have a cold current and hot current here, for example. And yeah, this has a huge effect on the climate along the coasts, and also in the entire continents. So it's an uneven pattern because of this. So it's the rotation that creates this uneven pattern. And of course also the barriers of mountains. When wind meets mountain, or when precipitation and clouds meets mountain, it stops there, and the area behind it will not get any rain sometimes. I guess it's called the rain shadow or something. But where were we? We were talking about deserts. And I can show you some deserts here in Australia. It's a big area here to the west that is in the desert climate zone. But it consists of several a bit smaller deserts with different names. We have the Tanami Desert. To the north we have the Great Sandy Desert here. It's a big one. Gibson Desert, smaller one, and then we have the Great Victoria Desert to the south, quite a big one. Simpson Desert here, more to the east, and Strzelecki Desert to the east, not to the east of the continent, but to the east of this area. But they're all in the western plateau of Australia. And those are hot deserts as well. There are some cold desert here in South Africa, except for these in Central Asia. And when I looked up these areas that has desert climate, I was so fascinated by the desert you find in Spain, because it's in Europe, and otherwise from this tiny little area, I guess we don't have any desert here. But it's a place along the Mediterranean coast in Spain called Cabo de Gata Níjar Natural Park. It's here somewhere. So it's a true hot desert climate here. Very, very small, limited piece of land. Also, actually, the Canary Islands there are a lot of desert climate on those. Almost the entire islands of Fuerteventura and Lanzarote, but also parts of the other islands. Gran Canaria. I think, yeah, here are the Canary Islands. I haven't mentioned Hawaii yet, but I read that something like, I'm not sure about the numbers, but 12 of the world's 14 climate zones are found on Hawaii. So, because there are so high mountains, so you find along the coast you will find tropical climate, I guess, and then the higher elevation you will find drier or colder, humid, subtropical, continental. I'm not sure. Maybe not Arctic. But I don't know. Yeah, maybe on the top of the mountains you will find some polar climate. I haven't looked it up in detail. Now let's talk a bit about the next group, C group, mild mid-latitude group. Then we first have the Mediterranean zone. Described with the letters C, S, A and C, S, B. And C is a mild mid-latitude letter, the third one of these five, and S stands for summer. It means that the summer is dry. And A stands for hot, and B stands for warm. So CSA has hot dry summer, and that's the Mediterranean climate. And you find it here around the Mediterranean Sea, both on the African northern coast but mostly on Europe's southern coast. So entire Portugal, western Spain, because most of the central Spain was a steppe climate. But yeah, for example, the Andalusian plain, the lowlands here to the west. Côte d'Azur in France, the Italian peninsula, the islands in the sea here, Greece, Albania, Turkey, the coast, Mediterranean coast here, the Levant. Also, we have a province in Iran, East Azerbaijan province. I can see that it belongs to this Mediterranean subgroup of climates. Ethiopian highlands. Here there are actually a lot of different climate zones, and at some points here there are also Mediterranean climate. The Atlas Mountains in Morocco and Algeria. And in Australia we have the area around Perth Basin, the Swan Coastal Plain, and an area around Adelaide is in the Mediterranean climate zone as well. So here we can see that, I can also show you the North American areas along the Pacific coast, Washington, Oregon, California states, west of the Cascade Range and the Sierra Nevada. So it's along the coast, quite narrow strip here. The Mediterranean climate, and also in central Chile, and some parts of the Andes here, maybe a bit of Argentina, but centered here around Santiago. So I guess these are very popular tourist places as well, very nice for people coming from the north, maybe, or from other areas to it's these dry summers, clear summers without rain, that, for example, I know a lot of people in Sweden, we have a lot of rain in the summer, and historically we want to go to somewhere around the Mediterranean Sea, perhaps in the summer, because then we know we will have a week or something with nice weather and we will get the sun. And so I guess it's areas where it's so it's considered to be quite nice weather, but actually it was fascinating to think a bit about it. It's actually in the summer when it's dry. It's because it's closer to the where the sun is closest to the Earth. I mean the equator. But in the summer in the northern hemisphere, then the actual equator, if you can call it that, where the sun shines the most on the surface of the Earth, is here, and then this becomes like almost like a desert climate, so very dry. That's why it's not raining so much in the summer. It's very dry, but it's not dry the whole year around. So then during the rest of the year the Mediterranean areas will get precipitation, so it's not a desert. You can still live there, and plants can grow there. But the time of the year in the summer, when it's so popular to be in this area for people from the north, for example, then it's actually because it reminds of a desert. But anyway, So here you could see very clearly that the Mediterranean climate is on the western part of the continent. And I guess it also has to do with winds and currents and precipitation patterns, pressure, low pressure, high pressure, moving through the year, changing as the season changes. Next we have the CFA or CWA letter code, and that's for the Humid Subtropical Climate. And C for this third group of 5, F for feucht, the German word for moist, so and A for hot, and the W for dry winter. So CFA, the humid subtropical CFA subgroup, has no dry season. It's humid all year. The CWA has a dry winter season, but it's still hot summer, or yeah, it's still hot weather. So these are also very nice places to visit for people from the north. I always refer to myself because I'm living here where it's quite cold. So these places I will show you now are also, like, for me it's very nice weather to go through these places. And we have a big area here in the US. The southeastern US, along the Gulf coastal plain and also the southern parts of the Atlantic coastal plain, and also inland, almost all the way to the Great Plains area. So there are a lot of states here. There are Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and northern parts of Florida are in this humid subtropical zone. And in Mexico we have the mountainous areas, Sierra Madres, Occidental and Oriental, in this zone. In South America we have the area in Argentina, Uruguay, southern Brazil, and also some parts of Paraguay. The Pampas area, the lowlands, very fertile. Area, and the parts here in southeastern Brazil is called the Atlantic Forest, or Mata Atlantica. Yes, it's a forested area here. In South Africa, here actually we have this area north of the deserts. Deserts are here. North of it, we have an area, the center of the continent, that is in this climate zone, the humid subtropical. The variant with the dry winters. So in Angola, for example, it's an area called the Cubango province. Almost the entire Zambia is in this zone. For example, the Kafue National Park. I guess it's the southern parts of the Miombo Woodlands I talked about earlier. But you can't find... I mean, this is between the Savanna... This is between the Savanna and the deserts. So it's where you maybe would expect to find a steppe. But anyway, maybe it's more like a steppe here, I'm not sure. But in this Köppen system, it is Mediterranean climate. With a dry winter. No, sorry, not Mediterranean. Maybe I've been saying that for a while now, but I mean the humid tropical. I mean the humid subtropical climate zone. And north of the Mediterranean area, we have some parts in Europe which are in this humid subtropical zone. In northern Italy, we have the Po Valley. In Croatia, we have the Istria Peninsula, and in Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Montenegro, we have the Dinaric Alps, also in this zone, humid subtropical. Serbia, we have the center of the country in the humid subtropical zone. 3 provinces, basically: Podrinje, Posavia, Šumadija, and Timokan Braničevo. And I guess it's in the Šumadija province, maybe. The capital, Belgrade, is located. Not sure, but I think so. And also along the Black Sea coast, we have some humid subtropical areas in Bulgaria, Romania, and big area here, the Russian Black Sea coast. In parts of Georgia and Azerbaijan is in this area. Parts of the Pontic Mountains, northern Anatolia or Turkey, is in this area. And then, of course, we have a big part of South China. And big parts of Japan as well. I guess Tokyo is in this zone. South China, we have the lower Yangtze Plain, Sichuan Basin, Yungui Plateau. So big part of, most populated part, I guess, also of China. And there are some areas with dry winter. In Myanmar and East India, Nepal. So in northern India we have the Indo-Gangetic Plain, that is part of this subgroup climate. maybe parts of the Central Highlands as well. And big parts of the Assam state to the very northeast of India. North Vietnam. And in Australia we have the eastern coast, basically. It's also humid subtropical climate. Queensland and on the coast here. Around Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast. Also very popular warm places, I guess, to spend time in or live in. On the way down to Sydney approximately is this humid subtropical. So it's the northeast part, you can say, of the Australian eastern coast. So yeah, here we have a lot of east coast. We find this humid subtropical. China, Atlantic coast, Brazil, Pampas, Australian east coast. Next we have Oceanic Climate or Marine West Coast Climate with the letters C, FB and CFC. C for the general group and F for feucht or moist, humid all year round, and B for mild or warm summer, and C for cool summer. So this is a zone where it's not so distinct changes around the seasons. It's raining a lot all year round, I guess, or not a lot if you compare to like tropical humid and tropical monsoon, but you get a lot of rain through the year. It's no dry season like the Mediterranean summer. So it's cloudy and the temperature doesn't change so much between the winter and it does change, but not so much. And the oceanic climate you can find on, I said it was called the Marine West Coast, so it's basically on western coasts this time, in opposite to the humid subtropical that you could find on the eastern coast mainly. But here we have the entire British Isles and Western Europe, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, western parts of Germany, also northern parts of Spain, called the Green Spain sometimes. It's an area here along the Atlantic coast, Bay of Biscay, the Pyrenees Mountains and the Cantabrian Mountains here. It's an oceanic climate. So we have Spain has actually a lot of different climate zones: desert, steppe, Mediterranean, oceanic. Pontic Mountains in northern Turkey along the Black Sea coast. It's also parts of it are in the oceanic climate. And here actually in Australia you will find it on the eastern coast. So I guess it has to do with that it's in the southern hemisphere somehow. So and now I don't remember what caused this climate, what winds or pressure or temperatures or currents. But for some reason it's on the eastern side, on the southern hemisphere. Okay, also you can find it in parts of Pampas here. Argentina, around Rio de Janeiro, no, around, I forgot it. Buenos Aires, of course. And also in southern tip of South Africa. But yeah, here in the southern part, southeastern part of Australia, along the coast, and Tasmania as well, and the entire New Zealand. So here it's from Sydney and along the coast to Melbourne, Victoria State here, Tasmania. You have this climate. And then there are some subtropical highland variety, so you can find it on high elevation mountainous areas in the Andes and the Brazilian highlands, in Africa, various points, and also in the Himalayas here. But I guess that's a bit different type of climate since it's very mountainous. So that was the C category, the mild mid-latitude, and now we have the D category, the severe mid-latitude. And I read something about this, that because in the US it's quite distinct line between the humid subtropical warm summer area here and the humid continental around the Great Lakes and New York and Northeast and New England, Midwest, Canada, southern Canada. It's the humid continental climate, and I read that you can see this difference in how houses are designed. So a house in Atlanta is designed with air condition because you want to keep the house, when you're indoors, you want to keep it cool because the summers get so hot. And in Minneapolis, for example, the houses are designed so you will have a warm house in the winter instead, because the winter is the dominant in the severe mid-latitude zone, and the summer is the dominant season in the humid subtropical zone. And I also live in the severe mid-latitude, the humid continental zone, so I'm not so... here in Sweden we don't have so many houses with air condition. It's not how we build houses here. Because for us it's more important to stay warm during the winter. So we're warming up the houses instead. Yeah, so I already mentioned this area here, northeastern US and southern Canada. The DFA and DFB subgroup. F means humid all year round, A means hot, B means warm summer. So you can still get hot summer here. Sweden is in the DFB region, I guess, with warm summer. In Eastern Europe we have the DFA variation with the hot summer. So the North European plain and the East European plain are in this area. And parts of northern Japan and Siberia, northeastern China, and parts of South Korea as well. And then we have the Subarctic region, or the cool continental. The humid continental could also be called the temperate continental, but the Subarctic is still in the severe mid-latitude D group, but it's also called the cool continental. So now we have the north of Sweden, for example, and we have a big part of Siberia, Canadian Shield here, Alaska. Actually, I forgot to mention the Oceanic Climate. That's quite interesting that we have the Oceanic Climate as well, the same as in Western Europe and southeastern Australia. We have that as well in the coast here in Canada and northern US and Alaska as well. So this narrow strip of Alaska along the coast is the Oceanic Climate, and I guess that must be because we have a warm current here from the south, the Alaska current, bringing warm water from equatorial areas or subtropical areas to the north, just like we have here Norwegian current, Brazil current, bringing warm water to the south, this side. And instead we have a cold current here, in this direction from north to south, along California, the west coast here. That's why it's cooler here, especially in the water. Have a cool stream here as well. Cold stream, Canary stream, cold stream here. Peru stream. So here we have this cold desert, Atacama. Cold and very dry. I read about the taiga. It's a super vast region here of the severe mid-latitude climate zone with where it grows coniferous forests, pine trees and fir trees and larch trees. We have it here in Sweden, we have it in Russia, Siberia, Canada. I didn't know I lived actually in the taiga eco-region. I thought, to me it sounds very like that the taiga is in Russia, but it's actually bigger than that. It's this entire area. And we have the Treeline, and that's basically the border between the severe mid-latitude zone and the polar zone, the E zone. So northern parts of Siberia, northern parts of Norway, I guess, Iceland, parts of Greenland, or the entire Greenland, but the coast are tundra and the interior is ice cap. It's two subgroups there. And the northern part of Canada and Alaska. The polar climate above the tree line, where no trees can grow. I found this nice illustration about tree lines, because it's not only here to the north we find tree lines, we find it around mountainous areas as well. You can see here is Himalaya. Temperate zone. You can see different types of vegetation here, different types of trees. High elevation we have the coniferous forests, I guess, and then the highest elevation we have treeless areas. Tenerife. The Andes, the torrid zone. The Alps and Pyrenees, Europe. Lapland, to northern Scandinavia, in the frigid zone. Also we have a tree line like this. Some high mountains mostly in Norway. So you cannot just talk about a tree line in the like north-southern scale like this. You also have to consider mountainous areas. I'm not sure if Iceland is above or under a tree line, because I know there aren't really any trees on Iceland, just small ones, but maybe those count as well. Not sure exactly why there aren't so many trees on Iceland. It's interesting, fascinating. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you found it interesting and relaxing. I found it very interesting to read about this. Learn more about the geographical, natural zones and borders of the Earth. So, sleep well. Take care. See you soon. Stay safe.